Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is Friday, October 13th, 2017. You can always check our information out by going to our 1-800 line, which is 1-800-472-0391, or on the web at weather.gov/Alaska, and then just click around in the areas that you choose. Now let's go on to your watch warnings and advisories to start the night off. We did have a powerful storm system out in the Bering, and it is now weakening. However, we do have some coastal flood warnings out across the Norton Sound through the late evening hours, and then we also have these high surf advisories along the Seward Peninsula and north across the Kotzebue Sound, and these will be lasting through the evening hours, and then we will see improvement on Saturday. So take a look at the weather systems currently in the area. Here's the low pressure system that's been bringing the strong gusty winds across the west coast, and is pretty much spinning down with some dry air intrusion. We do have another low pressure system sitting just to the south of it, putting this into motion. You can kind of see it's just not even a circulation as of yet, but that is going to be something that we're going to be looking at as we head into the weekend. So across the southeast, we've already had a huge swath of moisture pointed in that direction with the surface low across the eastern areas of the state. That has now pushed the front into the southeast, so rain has started across the southeast. To the north of this low pressure system, we have a cold air mass in place, and so far we've seen an inch of snow at Northway, and areas in the higher elevations across the Alaska Range have freshening white tops across the mountains there, and we also saw some light snow occurring all across the central areas of the state. Now let's take a look at this one more time. You can see a drier air mass is moving into the southwest, but there are only a few embedded showers there on the backside of the low pressure system that swung the front across the eastern areas of the state. So looking at that swath of moisture, it is in the direction of the southeast, and that's where it's primarily going to be pointed through the weekend. Now, low pressure is currently across the eastern areas, the Copper River Basin. This is weakening, and we have a weak boundary that's just across the southeast. So not a lot of precip expected with this for the afternoon hours. However, we will see ongoing snow to the north of this low pressure system, and that will continue through the evening hours along the north coast as well, across the Arctic. Across the western areas of the state, they had quite a bit of precipitation from the Bristol Bay areas and north to the northwest, between 1/4 to over an inch of rain for most of these locations. Now the front has dwindled, so they're just seeing some light shower activity move in off the Bering waters. And then we have this low pressure system across the eastern Aleutians, and here it is. It's wrapping up at the surface, and it's currently a 1,009 millibar low. It's not going to be a terribly strong system, but it is going to bring inclement weather across the Gulf into the southeast through the weekend. Now the low pressure system over the Kamchatka area is now a 982 millibar low, and this is pulling a cooler air mass across the northern areas of the Bering. Now as we head through the evening hours tonight, this frontal boundary will progress to just about Kodiak Island and bring widespread rain to the eastern areas of the Bering. Also, the Pribilof Islands and the Alaska Peninsula will be affected by this low pressure system. Here's the light snow that I mentioned across the eastern areas of the state, a little bit of mix of rain and snow along the northwest, as we do have a southerly flow just off the Bering Strait there, so keeping things a little bit more mild for the northwest. Now across the Copper River Basin, this cold air mass is going to stay all along these areas. Northway was down to 15 degrees with that 1 inch of snow on the ground. Now, light rain showers are going to be possible, mainly across the western areas of the Copper River, and these are primarily going to be snow showers, but any moisture that makes it further to the west will be a light rain shower. Now, across the southeast, we're going to see ongoing rain for them, with the boundary stalling for tonight. However, on Saturday, the system to watch is going to be this low pressure system. This low pressure system is going to be a 994 millibar low, so it does deepen as it moves across the southern areas of the Gulf. It's going to be pushing a warm front into the southeast. So all of this is going to be expected as rain. However, there is a few chances for snow along the Klondike Highway and in the upper elevations, with snow amounts possibly ranging between 1 to 2 inches. So not much accumulation is expected. Now, the snow to the north across the Copper River and across the interior, we might see trace accumulations with that precip, so not expecting much there as for snowfall. Across the Arctic coast, expect cold temperatures to stay in place, some patchy fog moving in through the afternoon hours for Saturday, and then a light rain and snow shower activity will hang on to that west coast. Expect, like I said, just primarily rain showers, and that's because we have low pressure across the Bering, and that's going to be swinging some short waves along and pushing them inland, so shower activity is going to persist. We'll also see a stronger south to westerly flow across the Bering. We are going to see it between 25 to 40 miles per hour. With the front pushing into the southeast too, they're going to be seeing an increase in the wind speeds along the frontal boundary. Whenever you see a front moving up, usually means that there is a pressure gradient squeeze, so expect winds to be gusting out of the south directions as you head into the inner channels. Now take a look at your weather on Sunday. Here's the low pressure system. It doesn't move a whole lot. It does push that front a little bit further inland, so perhaps most of these areas are going to see more rain than snow even to the north there. And we'll have this ongoing shower activity with the jet stream just pulling it across the area. To the north, we have light snow shower activity that will continue as the upper level waves just kind of rotate to the north. We also have some weak waves moving out of the Arctic coast towards the south. Now, the big change for the weekend is going to be that we have a cold air mass. We have a stationary boundary here, but overall, this push from the north is going to be slowly getting some colder air mass to the southern tier of the state. And that's why you see that the rain and snow mix moving a little bit further to the south. Along the northwest coast, there's not going to be that much snow accumulation, just some light snow shower activity. Now across the Bering, just showers persisting area-wide across the waters there. Not much in the way of any rain accumulation for the Alaska Peninsula on your Sunday. Basically, we've got a ridge moving up, so that might help to dry things out for the central Aleutians there. Now let's take a look at your temperatures across the state for tonight. We're expecting colder temperatures across the eastern Beaufort seacoast down through the Copper River. We're expecting temperatures to range there between 15 to 25 degrees. Across the west coast, we're going to see temperatures generally around 35 degrees or just above across the Bristol Bay and Kuskokwim Delta. For the Bering locations, expect temperatures near 40 degrees. Along the Gulf, we're going to see quite cold temperatures during the overnight hours for the Prince William Sound locations, getting down into the mid-30s, and Kodiak as well down to 37. Across the southeast, they did see some colder temperatures this morning in the lower 30s, so expect temperatures to drop tonight with a cloud cover, mainly in the upper 30s to lower 40s. The interior locations will all be freezing or just below. So looking at your high temperatures on Saturday, not much increase across the interior areas, staying right around that 35-degree mark just above. The warmest temperatures will be across the southwest in the mid-40s. The northern areas will be just below 30. Across the west and western Aleutians, expect temperatures to be increasing into the 30s. Now let's take a look at Sunday morning temperatures again. Going to be a little bit colder through the end of the weekend. So the southwest will even see temperatures dropping into the lower 30s, and the southeast will be the moderate area in the lower 40s. Now for Sunday afternoon, just a slight warm up there. Not much improvement as way of temperatures for the northeast, as that colder air mass is going to be propagating further south through the weekend. Even for the Bering, expect temperatures along that area to primarily be in the lower 40s.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Aviation for this weekend is going to be improving across most of the interior locations. During the morning hours on Saturday, we'll start off with MVFR and IFR across the interior and south central areas of the state. We are going to see IFR widespread across the north coast as well as MVFR. Also along the west coast, look out for widespread conditions there. The southeast will be mostly in the clear across the Gulf and just some areas of MVFR along the northern Gulf there, and also across the mountains across the interior. Now looking at your afternoon, we will see IFR conditions widespread across the Gulf and moving towards the southeast during the afternoon, while that area across the interior and south central will be improving quite a bit. The northern areas of the state are going to be pretty much in MVFR and IFR conditions for the remainder of the weekend, and then the MVFR conditions are also going to be along the west coast. We're also going to see MVFR spreading further across the western and central Aleutians for Saturday afternoon. As we head into Sunday, not too much change other than the IFR conditions moving into the central Aleutians. Now for the southwest, Sunday morning is going to be fairly VFR for the morning hours at least. MVFR conditions and IFR is going to be problematic Sunday morning for the southeast locations and patchy areas across the Cook Inlet and interior. Across the north, there's that MVFR and IFR condition, which stays through Sunday afternoon, while the interior locations from the Brooks Range to the Alaska Range clears out. MVFR conditions are going to be widespread across the eastern half of the Gulf of Alaska, with IFR hanging into the southeastern locations. Now the western parts of the state will see MVFR spreading a little bit further inland during the afternoon hours, and much of the Bering is going to be fairly VFR except for along the Aleutian chain. Now let's take a look at your passes in more depth. We'll see Anaktuvuk go from VFR to IFR later in the day, and Adigan will go also from VFR to IFR. Now Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will be VFR all day on Saturday, and we'll see Rainy stay VFR as well. Now Windy Pass will go from MVFR to VFR, and we'll see Isabel go from MVFR to VFR. Looking at Mentasta go from IFR to VFR in the afternoon, and Tanita will be VFR all day, and so will Portage. Taking a look at Chilkoot and White Pass, good conditions are going to be diminishing to MVFR during the afternoon. Now, let's take a look at the freezing levels across the state. Here we have the surface freezing level across the northwest and draping across the Gulf Coast down through the southeast. And then the 2,000-foot level is going to be increasing to 4,000 in the southern areas of the Gulf. Same trend here over the central Bering, increasing slowly to 4,000 just south of the chain. Now let's take a look at your icing concerns for tomorrow. That's going to be mainly below 4,000 feet across the north and western areas. We'll also see some icing concerns stretching just south of the Alaska Peninsula and moving into the eastern areas of the Gulf of Alaska, and just a trace of ice or isolated conditions also expected across the eastern Copper River. Now let's take a look at your jet stream. The pattern is primarily a zonal subtropical jet just south of the state, with the polar jet now becoming detached and a very weak flow up there. Now at the 9,000-foot level, we do have the circulations around 3 low pressure systems about the state, and the low pressure system here is the one in the Gulf that's going to be of concern, more of a southeasterly flow picking up into the southeast. Now on the backside of this low pressure system, we have the low over Kamchatka, a very strong wind flow there between 30 to 50 knots at 9,000 feet, with relatively light flow along the southern areas of the state. We're going to see 10 to 15 knots. Along the north there, more of a northerly flow coming down around 15 knots. Very similar system at the 3,000-foot level, with the flow coming off the Arctic across down towards the Brooks Range, and generally a weaker westerly flow across the southern areas of the state. So The main concerns out here again are going to be across the Bering between 30 to 40 knots and a stronger wind speed coming up into the southeast between 30 to 40 knots across the eastern areas of the Gulf there, and more of an easterly flow across the north coast. Now let's just take and sum up all of these windy areas. We're going to see mainly a speed shear across the southern areas of the Gulf creeping into the southeast late day, and we do have an area of turbulence out there across the western Aleutians.
It's a complicated project, but a simple life. You can study whales all over the world, you can study harbor seals all over the world, but you cannot study them in silence all over the world. So we really need this sort of piece of wilderness, this untrammeled wilderness, as they say, in order to answer some of these questions.
So we've been monitoring underwater sound here in Glacier Bay since May of 2000. And the reason why we're doing that is to understand what the park is like from the perspective of a marine mammal, because marine mammals are very dependent on the natural sound environment.
If you sort of bring it back to humans, humans respond to noise in very stereotypical ways, and other mammals do the same thing. So, if you go to a concert with your buddy and the music's really loud, you're going to talk at a higher pitch. You're going to talk louder, and you might have to repeat yourself. And marine mammals do the same thing if it gets noisy. So we're seeing, just which of those three that they actually do. We're here on Strawberry Island for the entire summer.
We sample 8 to 12 hours a day. There'll be 2 people who are on our beach station doing scans, marking each whale in the area, 2 people who are doing focal follows from our tower, which is a temporary tower that we have set up here on Strawberry Island, and then we have 2 people who are in the kayak who are doing fine-scale acoustic sampling for harbor seals. Got a harbor seal at 23 meters.
Got it? What's her bearing?
Bearing is 5822121.
Being able to pair what an animal is saying with where the animal is saying it is an amazing data set. It's a hard data set to get. It takes a lot of work, but it can answer so many questions.
So our cruise ship right here in the background is right on time today. We have a blissful hour and a half before the cruise ship gets here where we can watch our whales in silence, and then our ship comes in, bringing with it the noise that it brings, and we watch our whales while the ship's here to see whether or not their behavior is changing. And then it's going to go up bay and bring passengers to go see the glaciers, and we are going to get that blissful quiet again to see whether or not our whales are going back to that natural behavior.
This is the computer that runs our underwater acoustic monitoring, and there's a 5-mile cable from my office that leads out to a hydrophone that's out recording live sounds in Glacier Bay. And if I turn this up a little bit louder for the moment, that's the sound of a male harbor seal roaring because it's the mating season.
Bartlett Cove, Strawberry Island. Building a good field team and building some good camaraderie is really important. We have sort of these daily routines of things that we do together. So there's a schedule that we check every morning, who's gonna cook lunch that day, who's gonna cook dinner. And then every day we take a group photo. And then every day we do a daily check-in. We talk about what worked that day, what didn't work that day, and what we learned either from the island or from each other over the course of the day. Surface 900600.
Last night, there were anywhere from 8 to 10 individuals right along the kelp bed off the point. And we were trying to figure out exactly what they were doing. So as acousticians, Michelle and I got a hydrophone.
That seemed like the right thing to do.
Put the hydrophone in the water to see what was going on. Well, we dropped the hydrophone and it was so quiet. There was not a single roar.
Nothing. We heard nothing.
It was just so unusual.
One of the things we did observe yesterday was 2 large bull killer whales who had come into the area that we learned today were transient killer whales. They do come into this area to hunt harbor seals. This is a pupping ground. That's what they come in for.
Yep.
We cannot in any way, shape, or form definitively link the presence of mammal-eating killer whales with the silence of harbor seals.
No, but it is quite interesting that they happened at the exact same time. It's always an adventure on Strawberry Island. You never know what the day's gonna bring.
This morning at 5:15 in the morning, the area was just boiling with whales. I had one 15-minute scan this morning where I was literally hopping back and forth on either side of the theodolite, calling out numbers to try and get all the whales as quickly as possible. And then 15 minutes later, we couldn't find them. Aside from getting to be outside all the time, my favorite part of doing my PhD is getting to work with Leanna.
It goes both ways.
It helps when you put two minds that think differently onto the same problem.
Global ocean noise is a real problem, and there are areas of the ocean that have underwater sound from vessels so often that you could almost consider it an urban environment. Glacier Bay is a very remote area, and it was set aside as a national park in part to do scientific research. And we're privileged to be able to use it as a natural laboratory where we can better understand the impacts of underwater noise.
There are some places that act like characters in your life, and I think that a lot of Alaskans can resonate with the fact that living here is like having another family member. It's like having somebody really, really important who's sort of nudging you to be a little uncomfortable all the time and to stretch yourself all the time because it's worth it. I've lived here for almost 10 years. I've made Alaska my home, and so I'm an Alaskan by choice.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Now let's take a look at the sea ice edge. We're not really seeing any growth at this point. Strong easterly flow is not pushing the ice any further towards the coast at this time. So right now we're just going to be holding into this pattern as we head through the next few days. That might change though as a cold front moves down at the beginning of next week. Okay, let's take a look at the southeastern areas. For your Saturday marine forecast, expect gusty southerly winds across the entire area with small crafts down there across the outer waters. And we'll also see seas on this day between 4 to 5 feet across the inner channel, so a little bit higher on Saturday, and then across the outer waters between 9 and 11 feet. For your Sunday, expect a change of wind direction across the outer waters, becoming more westerly with the flow and at 30 knots there, and small craft also across the inner channels. We'll see more of a southeasterly flow across near the Dixon entrance, and as you head further north, more of a southerly flow there. We'll see seas on this day around 5 to 6 feet across the inner channels, and the outside waters will range between 9 to 17 feet. The highest seas will be further to the south. Now let's take a look at the northern Gulf and Cook Inlet. Around the Kenai, expect winds to be a little bit gustier on the west side, 25 knot small crafts out of the north and northeast direction. And we'll see the rest of the area primarily out of the east to north direction, except there across the northern Gulf, a little bit more southerly, with seas on this day across the Gulf waters between 5 to 7 feet, across the Cook Inlet as well, 4 to 7 feet. And then Prince William Sound will be around 2 feet on your Saturday. Heading into Sunday, expect lighter wind speeds on this day with a north to northwesterly flow across the area, and sea heights will be around 7 to 8 feet across the Gulf waters, and across Prince William Sound, the northern inlet 2 feet, and across the southern inlet 2 feet, with a little bit higher seas there at the southern tip of the Kenai at 6 feet. Now let's take a look at the Alaska Peninsula, looking at a stronger northerly flow, especially on the south side of the peninsula. So gales just to the south of the peninsula, all out of the north, like I said, and northwest. We'll see sea heights 5 to 8 feet on the Bering side and 12 to 15 feet on the Pacific side. Now, on your Sunday, expect a change of wind direction here, becoming more westerly, uniformly at 20 knots. And we'll see seas on this day between 5 to 8 feet. For your Saturday forecast, expect the Aleutians to see uniformly flow across the area with small craft advisories for the entire Aleutian chain ranging between 25 to 30 knots, except just to the south of the eastern Aleutians, we'll see 20 knots there. Seas on this day will be ranging between 9 to 12 feet. On Sunday, heading into that day, not much of a change, a little bit more of an increase in speeds on the southern side of the Aleutian chain, and we'll see sea heights on this day varying between 7 to 11 feet. Let's take a look at your Saturday marine forecast for the west coastal areas, seeing winds gusting between 15 to 20 knots, and we'll see sea heights between 3 to 11 feet. So overall improvement from the previous few days. And on your Sunday, expect winds all under small craft once again out of the west to southwest direction with seas between 2 to 9 feet, the highest seas across the central and northern areas of the Bering. Now your west coast is going to see the strongest winds across the Arctic on Saturday with freezing spray along the Arctic coastal areas out of the east at 25 knots, a little bit stronger there as you round towards the Chukchi Sea out of the east at 30 knots, becoming more southerly as you get closer to the Bering Strait there. We'll see seas on this day ranging between 7 to 11 feet across the area. On your Sunday, expect a little bit lighter speeds again across the western areas near the Seward Peninsula, north Kotzebue Sound. Expect pickup in wind speed there out of the east at 25 knots and across the Arctic coast. Expect between 10 to 15 knots, and mainly any freezing spray issue will be along the eastern Beaufort seacoast. Let's recap your forecast for tonight. We do have high surf advisories and coastal advisories along the Norton Sound and Seward Peninsula. However, those are going to improve as we head into the weekend. Snow is going to continue across the eastern areas of the state, and another low pressure system is going to be moving over to the southeast, bringing most of the precip for the weekend for the southeast.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.